All right, so I'll give you another update here. All right, I've got the passenger side subframe connector pretty well done. I'll show it in just a second more in detail. And now I'm making this driver side subframe connector here, all right? So one of the first steps I need to do is I got to start putting some bends in it, all right? And this here is 1.5 inch by 2 rectangular tubing. Not a real good way to bend it, so you pretty much got to notch it, all right? Well, I'll show you how I'm notching this stuff. So if I wanted say a 20-degree bend here, all right, I built myself a tool here, okay? Try and make sure I get this in the frame good, all right? You can see how it's put up. It's just 3 pieces of flat stock here, all right, welded together. And it's got a pivot right here. And this pivot, I can loosen and I can move this arm here, right? So I'll loosen it. And you can see I can move this arm to pretty much any angle here, right? So what I'll do, let me see here, right? Make sure I get this in the frame here, right? If I wanted, say, a 10-degree angle on something, my table it's pretty flat here, so it's going to be a 0 or 90 degrees depending on where you're at on the scale. So I can, let's see here, make sure I get this in your frame. So I can set this up on it, and I can like right now I just randomly moved it and I'm roughly 20 degrees off 0. All right, so in this case, if I was wanting to use that 20 degrees as a notch, all right, I can just set this alongside of it, and I can scribe, and then I can flip. And this mark here, I'll make a new one here, all right, let me see here. So I can just set it here, scribe that way, scribe that way, all right. And so you can see this right here. I'm going to be equal on both sides. If I was to cut this here all the way through and leave this back side here, and I would fold this way, and that's going to give me about a 40-degree bend, roughly, you know, because I had each one is 20 degrees off of straight. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense on how I do my angle cuts here, all right? So I've got this angle cut already made, you know, it's roughly a 20 degrees, so I set my tool here at 10 degrees. So I set it at 10 degrees scribe, 10 degrees scribe, made my cut. Then I did the same thing down here, you know, had my tool set at 10 degrees. So I made my 10 degree, and I made my cut. And that's got my offset here. You can see the offset, you know, it's pointed to the left and then pointed the opposite way to make the offset to fit right. Anyways, I'm gonna get back at it here and start the next step. All right, let me on say here. I'll just show you something else real quick. All right. So, like I said, this is 1.5 inch by 2 inch tubing, but my frame rail's 3 inches wide opening. So what I did is I just sistered on another piece of that tubing on the side of it, and then I did reinforce. Now, if you notice here, I did not line up my joints. This joint here is going in this direction, this joint here in that direction. I didn't want them the exact same. Just having them offset just a little bit keeps me from having a fracture point right there. Well, anyways, so that's what it is. And you'll see that when I get this set up in place here, you'll see how it makes sense. Now to do those, I took a horizontal bandsaw and I made a quickie stand, and I'm setting it upright. You'll see different types of setups for doing a portaband to make them. Well, if you just think of doing the same thing, just on a bigger scale, and you know, I'll cut that 1.5 inch by 2 inch tubing down the length, and if I split it in half, seeing that's 2 inches wide, that gives me 1 inch, and so the 1 inch plus that gives me the 3 inch that I need. So anyways, I'm going to get back at it and I'll update more here in a minute. All right, so I'm doing my first test fit underneath here, all right? So you can see where it goes into the factory kind of subframe there. And I'm trying to line it up. Let me get this ratchet strap out the way with this rear. Hang on here, let me get some of this stuff out the way if I can. All right, there we go. You can see this rear subframe right here. So I'm trying to line this up with that. So I got my angle coming out of here. It's going towards the center of the car, so I got to kick it from there and get it over in line with where I want it to get back here. You know, that's the current setup here, all right? So I've got these two joints here, you know, where I've notched it right here and here at each location. So once I get this set up, I can just tack it in place and I'll have my angles right. All right, so I'm setting this other subframe connector in place just so you get an idea of what I'm doing here, all right? Kind of got it just loose at the moment here. You can see where it's going to be. Now you can see I've already cut out the floorboard. So this is a cut the floorboard type thing. Now there is a brace going across the car I'll be tying it into, and I'll explain more of that, but that's a big deal. So I'll be connected well back here at the rear subframe connector. I'll be connected here in the middle of the car, and then of course up here in the front. So this is really going to be a stout setup when I'm done here, all right? Anyways, I'm going to put this in now. All right, so I got this thing up in place now, all right? You can see how it's fitting up in the back here. I got places to weld at high. I got buttonhole welds here. I'll be able to weld it down here. You see my fitment to my floor pan's really nice. Got the smallest of gaps here, all right? So that's gonna make for a very easy weld here, all right? And I'm stuffed in there. So, again, trying to get back here where I maybe see this whole thing at one shot here, all right? There you can see it. Now I'm going to do just a little bit more work right up in here, and I'll explain that here more after a bit. But that's what I'm doing, and all I got to do is get this other one to work as well. That's it. All right, I'm going to try to show you how to use this tool that I made. All right, hopefully it'll come out all right here, right? So again, I got my angle finder I made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a torpedo level here, all right? And I'm going to try and find whatever this angle is here, all right? So I'll make that right. So I'll just kind of snug that so it'll hold its place a little bit. Then I'm going to set it on this torpedo level because I know the rocker arm, I got the rocker arm of the car level, so all I got to do now is level the torpedo. Now I've got the angle that I need to cut this bracket that I need for the subframe connector. It's that easy. This is going to be my call it quits position for today. So I got again a passenger side subframe connector, driver side subframe connector. They're just loosely setting in place. They'll actually go up against the floorboard here. All right. The factory tolerances are very hard to deal with, so I had to split this bracket. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. See this big old gap right here, and if you look on this side, that sheet metal doesn't have a gap. It's got a very small one over here, like I said, where this got big old gaps on both sides. Kind of what this issue was back here. So just trying to accommodate for this stuff. But overall, you can see the exhaust has a nice straight path coming back. If you were doing this for a race car, it'd be great. Or for what I'm doing, you can see where the 4-inch exhaust is right here. I have to build the Y pipe, come from there and over here, come behind the pan. But now I got room for it. So you would have never had room to do that. You can see where the factory little subframe supports were originally. And there'd just been no way to do that. That exhaust would have been in that same exact place. You can see how it would have came right in front of that pipe. With the old T5 setup, it was so much narrower that this pipe could be pointed in more, so it was able to fit. Now with this wide transmission, can't do that. Same thing over here. This was pointed in on it. But we're all good now. Just gotta do a little final cleanup work. Gotta weld to the pan, and then build me a cross member for the transmission mount here. You know, just go from subframe connector to subframe connector, and it'll also have my mount for my torque arm, my shackle for my torque arm. So all in all, pretty good. Happy with the way it's coming out. I'll update more later.